just want people to know that despite the things that have happened to you, whether they're because of you or not because of you, like these are snapshots of like our life and it's not your whole movie. There's no perfect moment. Like do it now, do it today, do it when it happens. When those occurrences come across your path, like the time is now to grab them. I just know that we're not meant to be in states of confusion and unhappiness and sorrow forever.
Greetings, all. Welcome back to Living Once Twice, the place where we rewrite narratives, reinvent ourselves, and reimagine our lives. Before we dive into today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Living Once Twice, where you can learn about all of our amazing guests, including the one that I'm finna to bring on today, which is Jazimin Garrett. Jazimin is an entrepreneur, passionate writer, experienced creator, and French Bulldog lover. Be sure to read her piece, the story The Love Model, in the upcoming book, Magnificently Made, which features 33 extraordinary, heartwarming stories. The book is available for pre-sale now and slated to come out on November 11th. Through the gift of Jazimin's story and others shared in the book, readers will learn the power of love, finding the strength to navigate the how, and thrive in the face of life-altering circumstances and events. Jazimin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. I'm good. Feeling really good today. Obviously, it's a beautiful day out here in California, so I'm thankful for that. I'm just feeling really good. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate you having me come on the show.
I appreciate you too. And I also love how you kind of give us a little forecast of what the weather is like, because I always like to give folks context. And so, Jazimin, my fellow East Coaster, we actually met, I think like 2 years ago now is our friendship anniversary, but met you. And once I found out about this amazing project that you were working on, I'm so appreciative of you for being down to really share your story, because I think that there's so much insight and wisdom that you have to offer folks, sharing your own personal journey experience for so many of us who are going through life altering circumstances and events, but we struggle with navigating it. And your story really speaks to how we can kind of make it through and see that light and hang on to hope during those type of circumstances. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Again, the navigation of the piece, but also transforming loss into love. But before we dive into that, Jasmine, where I want to start is just giving you the opportunity for folks not familiar with you and your background and story. Can you just share a little bit more about like who is the one and only Jazimin Garrett? And again, what were the events in your life that led up to the manifestation of this book?
Well, I am, gosh, so many things to be quite honest. So I definitely don't like to be put in a box, as I'm sure you'll know. And based on our friendship and walks around the neighborhood, we've talked about all kinds of things. I am the youngest of four. My parents were both in the military. I actually grew up with my dad and my stepmom, who were both in the United States Navy. A little bit in the book, my real mom left at around 3. And so just been traveling the world with my parents through the military, moving from place to place and just navigating different situations. I was a New Yorker for a very long time. I've only been in the Bay Area here for about 3 years. Actually 4, I kid. I've been in the Bay Area about 4 years now, which is wild. Can't believe it. But yeah, definitely a New Yorker at heart. I think that's why we bonded. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here in California, seeing what's going on over here. This is where I was able to write this chapter in this book. So I'm just honored and excited that it's finally here.
Yeah. And speaking about your chapter in the book, I know you talk about some of the events in your life that really have shaped that experience in that chapter. So as folks who are going to read the book, going to get to learn, do you mind just speaking a little bit more about just the events that led to, again, your contribution in the book?
Sure. So many events. I feel like they actually started from like the time I was born, which is a bit wild. When I first sat down to write the chapter, I actually ended up kind of writing an outline for a whole book. And the editors and publishing company were really super excited, but they're like, hey, you got to curb that down, just because there's been so many events that have happened in my life. Beginning with my birth mom, she was on drugs. And then ending up my dad getting custody, my dad meeting my stepmom, and then getting custody of me and my 2 brothers. And my stepmom has a daughter as well, so that makes 4 of us now. And then just kind of navigating through life as a new blended family and being so young. I was only about 3 years old, but strangely enough for me, I remember so many things. I also think it's kind of wild when people are like, oh, they're kids, they don't know. Like, they know, they
Mm,
feel it, they know it. So don't ever think that your kids aren't privy to what's going on in your home, because they are. And then, years go by, we travel a lot. I was in Virginia Beach for high school, and then I moved to New York City when I was 18, super young, and went to school there. I was there for about 17, 18 years, never thought I would leave, and now I'm here. So many other
mm.
things, in that as well. I'm not sure if you want me to really go into detail, like my brother, this, that, or if,
Yeah. Well, there's one
yeah.
pivotal experience that you share, and just the open vulnerability that you have about your father and the
Mm,
relationship that you had with your dad. So, do you mind just sharing with the listeners about, like, what was your relationship like with your father? Who was your
yeah.
father as a person, and just share more about your dad?
Yeah, well, my dad's name is Larry. He's amazing. I don't actually have that story of having the bad dad or the not present father or things like that. Like, he was like this. So, my dad is just an incredible human being, 6'4", tall, big, black man, which is a little odd. People would be a bit like nervous or scared around him, and he knew that, which is again crazy. And he would have to kind of tame who he was just to ensure that folks around him knew that he was jovial and kind and loving. My dad did my hair when I was young. He was definitely a bit of a renaissance guy. He could sew, he could cook. He was actually a chef in the military for
Mhm.
over 20 years, and so he was always there for us. There's never been a moment in my life when my dad hasn't been there, with the exception of times he may have been out to sea, things like that. But there really isn't a moment where he hasn't just doted on all of the kids, including my stepsister, including I have a half brother who isn't his, which is another part of the story. So my dad was just the kind of dad that was always there. He was at every football game, every track meet, every milestone, prom, this, that. Like, he's just a good dad.
And I appreciate you just opening and sharing about your dad and your relationship, and how just strong of a bond you two had. And in the book, you were open and honest about, the health and the experience of your dad, and losing
Mhm,
your dad. And
mhm.
do you mind just for sharing for listeners out there, because I know there's going to be some who that resonates with them, like that loss of a parent and going through that type of an experience. Do you mind just kind of just talking through about, like, what was going on for you, and also, like, what helped you to get through that time in your life?
Yeah, I mean, that was really hard because my dad was always pretty healthy. He was very active. He wasn't just a guy that like sat around. He was always pretty active. And then he retired, and he and my mom both retired, and they moved from Italy back to the States. They were in the military there, and then they moved to upstate New York, and my dad's health just kind of started to deteriorate. I think that it's largely due to the situation that happened with my brother. So I have an older brother, our oldest brother, who shot and killed his partner, which is really devastating. So that's another part of the story. But when that happened, it was like that was my dad's like firstborn, and I think it really, really took a toll on him. And um, he didn't really seek therapy or help or anything like that for it. He just kind of moseyed on through life, and I can't imagine like what it did to him as a parent. You never know what you're going to get. And so what my brother did has nothing to do with my dad's parenting style or anything like that. That was his own choice. Um, but so he just kind of started to neglect himself, and he had his first stroke, and then second, third, fourth, and fifth. He ended up having 5 strokes, and it was like a couple of strokes, he was still like okay, and then he just wasn't. He wasn't himself. He wasn't the dad that I knew. It's hard to look at your parent and know that, wait, we have so much more life to give. We have so many more dreams to share and build. And once you become an older person, it's like your turn to take care of your parents. It's your turn to love on them. It's your turn to take them on trips and do all of these amazing things, which we did do some, but my dad was only 66, which is very young. And I'll never forget, I was on the East Coast shutting down an office that my company had, and my mom let me know he had had the fifth stroke, and I flew up immediately, and they were letting him out of the hospital that day, which I thought was kind of odd. And, typically he's, a little just like, he doesn't really talk much anymore. Like, it's like you can tell he's wanting to talk, but he can't.
Mm.
Like, it's like hard for him to get out. So I would keep my question simple. How are you doing? How's the weather? How about them Cowboys? My dad's a big Cowboys fan, so I know you're not, but it's okay. Um, and so, I would keep things simple. But that day, we were like, Dad, do you want to just go home? We'll take you back home. He was like, no, he wanted to go have a burger. So we went
Mm.
to Five Guys that day. And we had burgers and fries, and my dad was just super responsive and up and happy, and he just held my hand the whole time, and I was like, wow, this is kind of odd, like he's just in the hospital, but whatever, we're here. He still didn't want to go home, so we went to my mom's house, my grandmother's house, and we just all kind of hung out there, and he was laughing and telling jokes and holding my hand. And this is kind of funny. At one point, he kept kind of like making these faces, and we were like, what's going on? Like, Dad, what, my mom was like, what are you doing, Larry? Like, and we're like, Dad, what's going on? And he was like, I'm trying to fart. It's like, of course my dad's trying to fart. Of course he is. But I just felt this like sense of like something come over me. Like, I just had hope that like he was going to get better. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, he's holding my hand, he's walking, he's outwardly talking, which he didn't really do a lot based on the strokes. And so I just was holding onto his hand and just in constant sort of like prayer or manifesting or whatever you want to call it in your brain, just trying to push out these like positive vibes onto him. I held his hand the whole time, and I ended up having to go back to the airport super early the next day to go home. And, I was like, hey, Dad, like, is there anything that, um, like, any advice or anything that you can tell me or like what I should do, And he was like, just keep going. Like, you're doing so well. Like, just keep going. And I just remember like squeezing and hugging him so tight. And I was like, Dad, we need you to be here. Like, we want you to be here. So, let's continue our exercises and getting better in our therapy, all of the things that he had to do as a stroke victim. And my mom and I were trying to find some other like holistic ways and things because we had tried so much. And yeah, and then about 2 weeks later, I got the call that my dad just wasn't doing well. It was on Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving was just wild. There was really the only flight that would get me there got me there after Thanksgiving. But something in my spirit was like, I'm okay with that. Like, that day that I had with him was made for me. I knew that
Mm.
he pushed and did all of those things like for me so I could have that moment, so I could have that memory. And Thanksgiving Day was here. I was running the Oakland turkey trot, as you do. And my flight was going to be later that day to go see my dad. And the sun was out, and it was just like, again, I felt this presence, and I know that it was him just over me. And it was just like sunny and beautiful. And I was with my CEO and another coworker, and we just did the turkey trot. And I just felt this like sense of him being all around. But it was really, I think that it was him being all around. And
Mm.
then later on that day, I was just getting myself ready to head out to the airport, and I got the call that he had passed away.
Mm.
And so I didn't make it. Although in my brain, I don't like think about like I didn't make it. Every time my dad was in the hospital, I went to see him. Every time, even if he wasn't, like I was always with my dad. I did Father's Day big. I did everything really big with my parents all the time. So I didn't have that feeling of like, oh shit, I wasn't there. Like, because I was there and I was always there. And I know that day that we had was made for us. And so, yeah, it was hard though, because at, at that point, as well as my brother and my dad, it was like now, as I say, like my two like North Stars were gone. And a lot of times in life, I felt like I was going through a lot of things, but I had my brother and I had my dad. And I just felt like on top of the world with having two strong men like that in my life, and then just having them both taken was really hard. And the crazy part was I was writing this chapter in this book, and my dad was still alive. And as I write, I say to the people, like, things are going to continue to happen. As I'm writing right now, my dad has passed away, and now this is another thing that I have to navigate. Again, not the why is this happening to me, but how I'm going to get through and how I'm going to make it and how I'm going to uh, just really harness the love and commitment that he put into me, and to be able to hold myself up with that and just give it out to others.
Mm.
That was a lot of talking. Sorry.
No, 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 don't apologize. I mean, first, I appreciate you being just so open and honest about just having to really kind of take us all through and revisit that experience that you had to go through, and just kind of hearing the emotion and of having to relive that. I appreciate you being so open and honest with people, because there's many folks on the other side who are going to experience that, or who have
Mhm.
experienced that, or who are in the midst of experiencing that are going to draw again so much inspiration from your powerful story and your share in this book, and just kind of hearing you just explaining to us all what you were going through, Jasmine, at that time. But also just kind of want to honor some of the things that you shared, just how proud your dad was of you when you asked him, is there anything else? He just told you to keep on going, keep on doing what you're doing. And you also sharing on that day of running that race, how you could feel his presence and his spirit with you. And um, you talked a little bit, Jasmine, at the end there about how going through that, you could have asked yourself that question and no one would have judged you for of why. Why is this happening to me? Why am I losing the two North Stars in my life? And
Mhm.
so I guess I wanted to ask you of like, how did you find it within yourself, instead of asking your question that why me? Because it's easy to look at some of these
Mhm.
circumstances of loss in our lives as being unfair, especially when it happens to people that we love. And we look at maybe like other people who are like, well, why do they get kind of a more favorable outcome in their lives, but
Yeah.
my loved one has gone through this, or I've lost my loved one. What did you cultivate inside of yourself, or how did you cultivate it inside of yourself to not be asking yourself the why me, but to ask yourself how to kind of love more, or to be able to find such a new path that helped you to make it through that grief that you were experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I just know that, we're not meant to be in states of confusion and unhappiness and just sorrow forever. Um, I also know that when I reflect and think on my dad, like, there's never a time, like never 30 a time when I have anything like negative or bad to say. So to be able to celebrate his life on a day like Thanksgiving, like, I'm not, it's only been 2 years now, but I'm not the type to be like, oh, bah humbug, we're not going to do Thanksgiving. Like, I'm thankful. Of course he died on
Mm,
Thanksgiving, because I'm thankful for him, because I'm thankful that he was here, that he gave and he showed and he taught. I just know that he also wouldn't have it any other way either. And so, um, also with previous things that have happened in my life, being able to navigate the how was a little bit easier in this regard, just because he showed me so much love and compassion, and to others or perfect strangers. Like, he was the type of dad, you're on the family vacation in the car and someone's broke down on the side of the road, we're all stopping, we're figuring
mm,
it out, we're helping these people. Like, he's like that dad. Like, so the hard part is when I go to pick up the phone and I want to tell him something, or
mm,
I just am like, "Oh, cool, like it's holiday time or this or that." Or I think I'm single, for everyone out there. So I do think of, times like when I get married, not having my dad there, and that part really pains me. I'm not gonna lie. It does really cripple me, but I also know that there's wonderful other folks in my life that I can share the honor of doing that duty with. Um, so yeah, it isn't Valentine's Day every day by any means, but I just know that my life is good and deserving, and I have a great story about him. So there's no way to not be grateful for him
mm.
and
And
for
I
the
kind of want
experience.
Yeah, no, and it seems like you just have so many beautiful memories and lessons and gifts from your dad, and his spirit that continues to live on, but live on through you and the memory of his life. And speaking to that point about that pain, because
Mhm.
those of us who have experienced that loss, whether it be losing someone or them physically being removed from our lives, we know that it's ever present, as you were talking about some of these things in the future that you think of, or not being in the present moment, being able to pick up that phone. So I guess, what would you offer to someone who's just in that cloud of the grief and the sadness, and they're not able to see, Jasmine, hope of like, I don't know
Yeah.
if I can ever get through this sadness and grief to be really able to like move forward in my life. Like, what would you offer to them of kind of, if they're stuck in that season of the grief and the
Mhm.
sadness, and they're really struggling with seeing any hope because they're
Yeah.
just struggling of with that loss of the loved one in their life.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing too, like it doesn't ever go away, you know. Um he's not going to come back, or that person isn't going to come back. So it's more how you're going to live your life moving forward without. And again, like I said, every day isn't Valentine's Day. Like there's hard times for me. It's coming on November. My dad's birthday is November 7th. And so I invited a couple girlfriends. I'm like, hey, I want to celebrate my dad's birthday. And they were like, duh, like, yeah, like, let's do it. So um, for me, what I did, music is a big helper for me as well. Typically, there's always some kind of music on in my house. If I wasn't on this video, there would definitely be music. My dad was a big Motown guy. He was, singing in the shower loud, like mopping, singing, like that kind of guy. So I often turn to things like that. I definitely have tons of dance parties right behind me in this living room by myself or with friends. But in those times, I just don't want to come off like sounding like cheesy, but it's like you have to count on yourself and those memories. You have to count on your community. You have to build a good community, whether it's that one best friend you have. You don't have to have a ton of friends either, like, so it doesn't have to be like, oh, I have a ton of friends. Like one day during the time when my dad had passed, I was in the laundry room and of course ran into some random woman. I don't know how it came out that my dad passed, but it did. And when I left and came back to then put my clothes in the dryer, there was a card on the wash machine from a perfect stranger I had just met. And she just wrote, like, wow, thank you for telling me your story. Here's my number. It was such a pleasure to meet you. And now I hang with her like almost every other day now. Met the lady in the laundry room. So it's like you have to really dig deep. And that's the thing. It's really on you. Like,
Mm.
there's no one, yeah, your friends and people are going to help you, but it's kind of like that saying, like bringing the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like when you're ready, when you're full, and I'm not saying like, oh, these things your dad died, get over it, shake it off. Like, it's like yes and no, because you can't dwell in it forever, but you have to just know that your life has value, your life is meaningful, there's more days ahead, and you just can't continue to live in that cloud. I mean, I do have days and I do have times when I think about my dad and I miss him so much, but it's really just like embedded in me that I cannot, like, I refuse to let these things like take over my life. And that's another subject in the book too. It's like the things that happen to you not because of you. So like if your parents got divorced, like you didn't do that, they did that. Like, but if you robbed a bank, that's on you. But like when your parents got divorced, not saying that that happened to you, but if your parents got divorced, like how do you navigate the things that happen to you but not because of you? And that's often when that sort of like why me comes in. It's not, no,
Hmm.
no, no, not why, but how. So,
I really love what you offer here, Jasmine. Of like, this is the reality. Like, life is going to happen to all of us. Like,
yes.
at some point in time, we are all going to experience some sort of loss of a relationship, a job, a loved one, and it's to your point. It's like, well, what are we going to do in those moments? Because it really is on us. And something that you talked about was like people, community,
Mhm. Yeah.
friends, and their support that was provided. And something we were talking about before we hit record here was like sometimes when folks in our lives are going through tough seasons, as a friend, especially if it's a loss, you kind of don't know how to show
Yeah.
up because you don't
Mhm.
want to trigger them. You know they're already going through something that's emotionally difficult right now. And so sometimes you might back away. You just don't know, again, how to be there for a person. So I guess, like, can you speak a little bit more about, it sounded like how important that was, and what would you say to someone who's on the other side of having a friend navigate something, but just feel a little bit hesitant or nervous because they don't know how to approach them and how to provide support when they're going through a season of grief.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You have to every case is different, depending on what's happened in that person's life. But you have to just kind of meet people where they are. Um,
Mm.
and it is uncomfortable and it is awkward, but to not show up for someone because of how uncomfortable you are, like it's not about you. It's about the person that you're trying to help and things like that. And sometimes a simple text message. But for me, with everyone, it's going to be different. But for me, it was the people that just came and sat with me, the people that just came and had a dance party with me in my living room to Motown. Um, it was like every, again, holidays, this and that, all of these things come. Football season comes around, and I'm like, oh, I hear the game, but it's almost like refreshing to me, and it warms my heart because my dad was such a football guy. But it's like you have to really just set your own feelings aside and just meet that person where they are. And to be quite honest, you're not triggering, you're showing up for them. They'll let you know if, like, hey, Justin, thank you so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. I just want to be alone in this moment. And that's great. Um, people often do like the sending food or this or that, which is great too. But for me personally, it was like FaceTime that I got with people one on one, like people that flew to come see me, people that flew to come to my dad's celebration of life, like people that just came over or popped by, or, it's like you have to make a sacrifice. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and you might be crying and you might be sad. It might trigger you, but you have to kind of like put your own self aside to just comfort and be there for that person. So for me, it was like all of the ones that came around me and just, lifted me up.
I love what you offer there too, of just like you removing yourself out of the equation, because it's easy for us also to do, kind of be self-centered, and again,
Yeah.
in that uncomfortableness of it, wanting to avoid being with someone in their pain. But to what you talk about, it's a part of love. It's a part of that, showing that unconditional love of
Yeah.
someone, is being there for them in those moments. Was there
Yeah.
something else you want to say? I don't want to cut you off there.
No, I just even in that, I find myself like when I'm even helping others, like it gives me a sense of like value as well. It's like to do something for someone, even if it's small, as like smile at someone like in the street, or whatever it is that you're doing to help someone, like that also like creates a little bit of like a love buzz in yourself that you have like given and done for someone else, and like you might not even know that it boosted you, and you didn't even know that it was something that you needed.
Mm. Now, another aspect of love, in terms of
Mhm.
the book that I want to talk about, or I guess, is like the relationship aspect of love, especially for folks out there who maybe are learning how to relove again after, say, a hurt or relationship doesn't work out. And so, I guess I want to just kind of share this quote that I got from you in the book, which is: "Love boldly,
Mm.
love without fear, and with all of your passion. Love when it's easy and love when it hurts. Be affectionate. The strength of our arms is powerful."
Yeah.
But what if you're someone who, again, you've gotten burned by love, and you're struggling in a season of where you're not feeling like you can easily open your heart or unlock your heart again to love? Like, what would you offer to someone who's kind of stuck in that, who wants to love again, but unfortunately, when they have loved, it's kind of bitten them, and now they're feeling a little tainted by love? So, what would you offer to someone who's just struggling with unlocking their heart to love again?
Yeah, I mean, for me, to be completely honest, the thought of that scenario or that situation or that person that you're describing is just never a way that I would be. Like the bitter damage, this and that, because as you and I both said before, like things are going to continue to hit you and things are going to continue to happen to you. So if it's a love relationship, like we're in love, like we're boyfriend, girlfriend, or married, or whatever that kind of thing is, it's like you can't just based on that one time or two times or however many times happened to you. If it's happened multiple times, you need to look inside yourself and kind of see like, hey, where did you maybe make mistakes or go wrong or something like that? Because we all, whether we're the good or bad person in the relationship, like we all have to kind of like reflect on it and see where you may have like, oh, was there a red flag or this or that that I was just like overlooking. But like it would just be madness to me to never want to love again. Or sure, you got to take your time and get back into it, things like that. But like, don't throw away your life and your opportunity for like love and greatness. Like, she could walk by you tomorrow and you're, stuck on stupid, or whatever. So it's like, why even, I would never even fathom it. Like, I've been cheated on, I've had boyfriends leave, I've had the wild scenarios in that regard too. And I'm just like, I know what I bring to the table. I know my value. I know my worth. I know how much love I have to give. I know who I am. I know what I offer. And so I know that sounds like I'm just like really positive and up on all the time, but it's like we have free will to choose. Like, we get to choose. And again, so if you're continually like down in the dumps and oh, woe is me, like, of course no one wants to be around that. No one wants to holler at that. Like, no one wants to hang around that, whether it's friends or coworkers or whatever. So it's like you got to just like get back on the horse again, get back on the bike again, and keep going. Give yourself the time and space to heal. But don't give up. Like, that would be utter madness in my opinion, for any human to. And again, sure, take the time you need, but don't take too much time, because there's a lot of life and things passing you by in the interim, and it's like it's not a way we want to be.
This is the inspiration I appreciate so much about you, Jasmine, because you're like just dust yourself off. Like, all right, you get
Yeah.
knocked down, get back up, get back on that horse, and
Yeah.
continue on the journey, and don't let that dim your light at
Mm-mm.
all. And you were speaking about this whole aspect of like time and time being short. And we know for so many of us, hopefully the pandemic was a really huge
Ooh.
eye opener in
Yeah.
that time is also, it's just, it's unpredictable. None of us know what lies 6 months, 1 year from now. But I know for so many people out there who are listening, they could still be stuck in a waiting for the perfect moment, whether it's the perfect moment to ask that person out, the
Yeah.
perfect moment to leave that job, to go travel, to go move. Anything else you would say just about like for people out there who are struggling with waiting for the perfect moment for to make that step or to make that move and to live more boldly, like anything that life has kind of continued to teach you or that you would offer to them about that waiting for the perfect moment?
Yeah, there's no perfect moment. Like, do it now, do it today, do it when it happens. When you see that girl, ask her out. When you see that job that has your name all over it, like, apply today. Like, when those occurrences come across your path, like, the time is now to grab them. It's not like, because when, that gal walks by, she's gone. Like, when tomorrow you're like, oh man, I should have talked to her, you should have. You should have applied. You should have done, like, anytime those sort of like instances come up, and you feel that, like, you got to trust your gut, you got to trust your instincts. And it's like, are we ever ready for whatever? Are we ready for kids? Are we ready for this? Are we ready for that? We're not ready for a lot of things. We just do. I'm not saying like, never run, one time around the track and then just enter the marathon. But like, instances like that, like, no, like, that's what life is about. Like, take that chance, jump on in, take that opportunity. For me, I always say you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Like, ask that question, ask for that raise, advocate for yourself, ask her out, holler at the guy at the movie theater. Like, I've literally looked across the bar and been like, oh, boom, there he is. And guess what? He was for 4 years. So, like, I don't let those things pass me by. I'm not timid to talk to people or engage or like, what's up? Like, I just feel like everything is like they say, the world is your oyster. All of these opportunities and things, you never know who you're going to meet, see. Like, the world is also real small too. Um, so I just say go for it. Like, 10 out of 10 every single time. Do it. That's what I would say.
I think this is because Jasmine, you are so just grounded in who you are, your worth, your value, what you bring to the table, and this is what I hope rubs off on other people out there. But I know they're going to be wondering, well, like, how did you get there? How did you like not get absorbed by the distractions of the world, being a black woman in the world?
Mhm.
Like, there's so many other external factors and inputs that come your way. Is this attributed to your dad, your upbringing? Like, what helped you to just to become like so grounded and steady inside of yourself without getting kind of tied up into the outside voices of the world, the perceptions of the world, and what kind of the world would want to kind of cast upon you.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think maybe too the way I was brought up because, like I said, both my parents were military, active military, Navy, and we moved every 2 to 4 years. So, we moved from Virginia, Alaska, Texas, California, all over the place, all over the country, all over the world, and it's like you have to make new friends. You have to like speak up, and I'm really thankful for that. I meet people that don't have a passport or have never been here or there, and I'm like, wow, like so again, I know not everyone is as bubbly and outgoing and things like that as me, but I have times when I'm a little nervous or scared, or I mean, even this podcast, this is the first time I've ever been doing something like this, and I had a bit of nerves, but I'm like, let's get it. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're gonna show up, we're gonna show out, like we're gonna do it. So, I just for me it was just more or less growing up the way I grew up. It was like if I had to talk to new people, I was the
Mm,
new girl in school every 2 to 4 years, moving, and then as you're getting older, you might have a little babysitting job or these jobs, so you have to present yourself. And my parents weren't like, they were both working, so they weren't just like in the house. They're like, go outside, make some friends, get out there. So, they taught us to be confident in that regard as well. And, my dad was also very much like, I made straight A's in school. Like I didn't really study, which is kind of random, but I don't know how it just came to me. I really loved school. But, he just instilled in me like there wasn't really anything I couldn't do. I remember
mm.
my brothers and sisters not doing as well as me in school. And they all took Spanish and they all didn't do well. And I remember when I was able to take a language, my dad was like, you're going to take Spanish? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, everybody. And he was like, let me stop myself. He's like, they're not you though. And I was like, of course I'm taking Spanish, and of course I'm making an A. Hola, ¿cómo está? Let's get it. Yeah. I know I'm a bit wild and out there. It was funny and honoring too at my dad's celebration of life. We called it a celebration of life. I spoke last, and it was just such an honor to hear everyone speak about my dad. But the one thing that everyone kept saying was that I was the most like my dad. And I was like, what an honor, because I'm out there. But, he was funny, happy, like always saying the most, doing the most in the greatest way. And so I was just like a high compliment to me.
Again, just props to your dad and everything that he's invested and kind of just kind of lives through with you in
Yeah.
terms of his spirit. And just hearing you talk about again how you just live and define your life of taking bold action and your ability to really detangle the voice of the outside world from what you want and how that's just help you to continue to stay grounded in yourself. I think it's just remarkable and really inspiring for those who get to get the book and listen to your story. They're going to get to absorb that and really learn from you. And I guess speaking with self love, because we know, Jasmine, like that, there's such a movement about self
Yeah.
love going on. I'm just wondering from you, like from what you've observed, whether it's through the process of writing the book, just life, like why do you feel that so many of us out there struggle in the self love department? And it's such a topic that so many people are trying to like prioritize in their life. But like, any thoughts on why so many of us are struggling with self love to begin with?
I mean, I think that a lot of our surroundings really factor into that, like where you were brought up, how you were brought up. Did people tell you they loved you at home? Did they not? Like what was your upbringing like? And a lot of times it's like you either continue on that path if it was like we didn't show affection or this or that, or you're completely like hell to the no, I'm not doing that again. Like I'm gonna, sort of change these generational curses or things like that. So it's like you kind of have those two ways. And at the end of the day, as I said before, like we get to choose, like we have free will. When you're born and put on this earth, you might be put into a situation that isn't great, but there's going to be a point in time where you get to choose and you get to make the decisions and you get to work hard so you don't live in poverty, and you get to do whatever it is. You might walk 5 miles to school so you can get an education so you don't have to be like that. So it's like, you get at the end of the day, I just feel like we get to choose. We get to choose if we go right and left. And as you said to me before, like if I did go left, no one would ask me why. They would get it, they would understand it. They wouldn't like condemn me for it or anything like that. But it's like, I'd rather not because that's just not who I am. And a part of why I wanted to write this chapter and eventually this full book that I'm in the process of writing as well was to show people that, most people meet me and they're like, you know, you know me, like you've met me and I'm out there. I have all my stories. I'm traveling, I'm doing this, I'm doing the most, I'm going to concerts, I'm having a good time, like all of the great things. And then you read the story, like, even you sent me the text message last night and I could tell, I was like, yeah, he read that, like, how the heck is she so happy? But it's like, I just feel like my life matters and like I deserve an opportunity and I deserve greatness and I deserve goodness. And so, like, there's hard things. Like, it's hard, especially as a woman. Like, my mom left me. My mom chose drugs and that lifestyle over her three children. As a woman, I'm like, how do you hold them, carry them, push them out? And not want to like be a part. I have a dog and I'm like obsessed, you know what I mean? So, and then to there's so many other things that just like other bits of abuse, being in a weird situations with having a step parent, although she's lovely. I feel like we talk a lot about my dad too, and I just want to shout out to my stepmom, who I do call mom. Her name is Jenny. She's phenomenal and amazing as well. But it was odd to have this stepsister and this weird dynamic, and then to understand one day, like, oh, that's not your real mom because you're really young and you don't understand, and then to go through what happened with my brother and losing him. And then, there's so many things that have happened. And so it's like a huge part of why I wanted to share my story with the world is because I want people to see that they can live like me. You can be happy. You can still have joy. You can still have love. You can, I'm not saying, oh, you're raped, like get over it. But it's like, do the work that's necessary and the things that you need to do for you so you can have love and great sexual experiences and not be like wrapped up and not be like stuck under it, like I want everyone to rise. I want everyone to rise up. I want to lift the heads of humanity. I just want people to know that despite the things that have happened to you, whether they're because of you or not because of you, like these are snapshots of like our life and it's not your whole movie. Like you get to choose, you get to be better, you get to try again. Like even your podcast, like living once, twice, I'm like, that's me. Like I got the chance to make decisions in my life at pivotal times
Mm.
to go left or go right. And I just hope I can continue to always go right.
And something that you make so clear is the accountability. Like it all starts with us. Like we are
Yep.
responsible, we're accountable. Granted, there were things that happened to us earlier in our lives. In this present moment, we've got the opportunity with using our own advocacy to change and to kind of rewrite a different narrative and present and chapters going forward. But as you were speaking about just like your experience with your mom and something you outlined in the book about your brother, like there are times in our lives, especially in our younger years, where folks
Mhm.
older than us made choices that impact us.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm wondering for you, like as a part of love and unconditional love, like how do you find within yourself maybe the ability to forgive or to still love
Mhm.
someone for choices that they made that impact you or others? Like how did you find it inside of yourself to still find love to people in those type of circumstances?
Yeah, that one is a bit harder to to see or to navigate. As I said before, I grew up with my dad and my stepmom. So my real mom was a drug addict. Again, I was very young, so I don't know a lot about it, but I remember she was in our lives for like a little bit, maybe like a year, and then she just kind of disappeared. And then I kind of understood that I was like a stepchild and, that whole sort of thing. And I would pray for my mom at night. I didn't know I was praying. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just know that I would go to bed at night and I would lay down and I would just pray for her. And I would say, if she came back into my life, I wouldn't ask any questions. I wouldn't ask why, wouldn't ask where you been, what you doing, because we know why. We know where, we know what. Like, so I always find it odd when people ask those questions like, oh, did you ever ask your brother why he did that? And I'm like, no. What's he going to say then and be like, you know what? You're right. She deserved that or whatever. Like, what's my mom going to say to me if I ask her why? That, oh, because the drugs mattered more to me. And am I supposed to be like, you're right. I get you. Totally. Like, no. So once again, it's like you have to either focus on moving forward or not. And so in my little tiny prayer brain or whatever I was doing, because again, I didn't go to church at that time or anything like that. I just would lay in bed at night and that's what I would think. And I actually did get that opportunity when I was almost 21. My mom called me and I knew it was her voice immediately. Like I just knew it. And I hadn't talked to her since I was 3 years old until I was 21. And she just got on the phone and she was like, "Hi, baby." And I knew it was her. And I was like in this restaurant. I remember like sliding down the wall onto the floor and just like sank. And I just talked to her and I just let her say whatever she wanted, let her, do whatever, be whatever. But I also knew that there was something like not right about the call. She was still a little like aloof and this and that. But I had to accept her where she was. And so that's the thing with these people
Mm.
that harm you or do bad things to you or do whatever. A, this could be a snapshot of their life and not their whole movie. So give a little grace for that. But B, these things or these whatever they've done, it wasn't because of you or it wasn't because of me. My mom didn't get on drugs because she was like, oh, this baby's ugly. Get out of here. Like that was something going on in her world because of her and it wasn't because of me. So I think when people understand and get that these things that people do that aren't because of you but affect you aren't about you, and you learn to like separate that and get that. Either I once had a therapist tell me, like I was having issues with my parents, my stepmom and dad after everything happened with my brother. They didn't want to celebrate Christmas. They didn't want to do this. They kind of, were like, oh, we're not, we hate Christmas. And I was like, you have grandkids, like you can't do that. But my therapist, like I struggled with it. Like I was like, what, and that's what he told me. He said, Jasmine, you have to meet your parents where they are. Not everyone is as strong as you. Not everyone does this. Not everyone communicates the way you do. Not everyone is like, oh, let's talk it out and move forward. So if that's what they're giving you and that's where they're at and you want a relationship with that person, whether it's dad, brother, sister, someone who's like hurt you or wronged you, if you want a relationship with that person, you have to meet them where they are. And then in order to protect yourself, you have to create certain boundaries. So my boundary with my mom when she called me was she became inconsistent. So then I put up the boundary of saying at 21, this is all within the same year, hey mom, you've lied to me my whole life. You've been inconsistent. So we're not going to talk anymore. I appreciate you calling me, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to one day get married, have kids, do this, do that, and then you be inconsistent in their lives. So we're just going to end this. And that was that. And we hung up the phone. And I'm real easy if you call me back and you're like, I'm sorry. I might be like, okay. But she didn't. She didn't do that. Instead, she started to call my brothers and do silly things with them. And then when she had about 2 weeks to live, she called me and told me she had 2 weeks to live. And I just was like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but this is my boundary. And I was like, I need to talk to a doctor or caretaker or someone, because you've lied to me my whole life, this, and that. And I want to be there with you. I don't want you dying alone. I'm happy to jump on a plane and come be there, but I just need confirmation. And so it's like I had to protect my peace and myself while also still trying to be there, but also still trying to make sure that whatever this relationship is or isn't with my real mom won't haunt me for the rest of my life, that I'm doing the things that I need to do for myself to navigate that situation as well. That was
Wow.
just like a whole nother thing.
No, that's incredible for you to share, and I appreciate because I think there's a lot of takeaways that for folks who are dealing with in their younger years, whether it was a parent, a sibling, someone else who showed up in a way that caused hurt and harm
Mhm.
and has impacted them, of you talking about, well, how if they want to kind of have that sense of peace in their lives, some of the things that you had to navigate and going through, whether it was accepting people of where they are, taking themselves out of the equation and understanding that, yeah, what that person did had nothing to do with you. And
Right.
that is so helpful because then it lets you stop asking yourself the
Mhm.
question of like, well, why did this person treat me this way? Or maybe to disassociate from any identity you developed from that experience and unfortunately from that treatment or trauma that came from that that experience with the person. And then you hit on something that think is so powerful. I don't know if you want to speak more about, which is
Mhm.
the aspect of just the boundaries, like having to
Yeah.
set boundaries as an adult, having to set boundaries almost as the adult towards parents sometimes, which can be an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic for many of us that we're like, wait a minute, I'm the child. Why should I be setting a boundary with my parent? But in some cases, as you said, to protect your own peace and your own wellness and to preserve your mental health, you need to do that. And so for anyone out there who Jasmine might feel a little uncomfortable about even the idea of setting boundaries with their
Mhm.
parents. Like anything
Mhm.
you just want to offer to them if they're like, well, I'm the child. Like, am I disrespecting my parent by setting a boundary? Like, it just doesn't feel right in terms of that dynamic.
No, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe anyone could get a timeout. Mom, dad, brother, sister, boss, neighbor, friend. Like if someone is like intruding on your peace and like disrupting your world and your life, like no, you can get a timeout. I've definitely put my parents actually not my dad, he's always been pretty great, but I mean, I've definitely put people on timeout before and it's like I have to then ask myself, do I want to continue in this relationship? Do I see change coming up? Are they going to grow? Are they going to this, that, like those sorts of things. Um, but I get so bothered when people are like, oh, but they're my mom. Oh, they're family. That's my sister. Like, I don't give a damn. Like, I don't care if you're Barack and Michelle. Like, whoever it is, like, anybody can get a timeout if they're like infiltrating your peace or like broken your trust or this or that. Like, and I'm not one to like test people or anything like that. For me, like you're all in until you show me that there's a reason why you're not. But like people have to like have repercussions for things that they do to you. And whether that is, we're just going to take a time out, I need to breathe and think, or hey, now you've actually lost me in your life now because of X, Y, and Z. Like I'm always willing to forgive people too. So I'm always willing to forgive, but it doesn't mean I forget. And it doesn't mean that I rock with you. Like just because I forgive you, it doesn't mean we're rocking together again. Like I forgive you for me. I forgive you for me, but I also I forgive you for you as well. So you can like release and then just reflect and think on how to be a better human and to maybe not do that again. Not maybe, but to not do that again. Like even I had this boyfriend once who was like, well, I was like boo hoo hoo, like he had been like texting some other woman, and I was like, absolutely not. And he just thought that I like he could say sorry and it would be cool, and I was like, no, that's like a non-negotiable for me. And like he just couldn't, crying and the whole nine. I'm like, I hear you and I believe you could possibly be better, but that being better is going to be with someone else because it's not going to be me. So, like, I listened and I heard him out and that sort of thing. But it was like, you have to have your non negotiables, you have to have your values, you have to set your boundaries, your guardrails. Like, you got to protect your peace. Like, no one else is protecting you but you and maybe your mama. But you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, you got to protect your own peace.
I think that is just so well said and put, Jasmine. It's like, what did you? I see this said somewhere else. It's like apology accepted, access denied, and sometimes that's kind of how it is in life. No, I can't coin that term. Someone else said that on
I
Instagram
love
somewhere.
it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that is facts. And so you're
Yeah.
able to forgive folks, but you don't necessarily need to allow them
Yeah.
access
I've
back into
also
your
been in a place where I wasn't forgiven. Like I haven't been the greatest egg in my life, and it sucks. Like it's hard. It sucks when you're really sorry, and then people, oh, you're sorry because you were caught or this or that. And it's like, okay, maybe. Obviously that's what happened too, but like you can still be really sorry. And I've been really sorry and not forgiven, and I don't want to ever do that to someone. So it's like, yeah, I can forgive you, but we're not going to rock. But I want to release me. I want to release them. And like, it's not a good feeling. So I don't ever want to, I always want to leave people feeling great. And like, in a situation like that, if you're leaving not feeling great, that's because, you're understanding the repercussions of your actions with us. But you should feel great in knowing that I just gave you a piece of nugget of advice in life to just do better, be better. But I also like, we all make mistakes. We all do shitty shit. Like we all have done something like not cool. So I don't ever claim to be like Mother Teresa by any means, but you know, I I've learned and I want to do better and I want to be better and I am and I want to give people that same opportunity and we all deserve it. Everyone deserves a second, third, fourth, fifth, however many chances. Like people still deserve it. Again, the chance might not be with you, but you know, we're always a couple decisions away from something not great. And I just want to
Mm.
give grace for that. Like we're all human.
Once again,
Life is
well
rough.
said and
It's
well
a lot.
put. Well said and well put there, Jasmine. And so before we go into our each one teach one thing I want to wrap up with is that the whole aspect of balancing. For many of us out there, we're very spiritual. So we're like, I'm just going to put it in the universe's hands. I'm going to put it in my higher power, God's hands, whatever that
Mhm.
might be. And that's going to take care of it. But I guess, like, what would you say about there's this important balance of the co-creation? Like, yes, you might be able to leverage some of this the spiritual power aside of yourself, but you still can't rely on that just alone. You still have a
Yeah,
responsibility in it.
100%. Like, and whatever your faith is, or you believe, or you don't believe, or it's energy exchange, or whatever it is. I mean, I feel like I believe in all kinds of things. So maybe I'm not the greatest in that regard, but I do know with any whether it's putting out good energy or prayer or whatever it is, meditation or any of those things, which I love meditation. It's incredible. Um, you still have to do the work. Like you can't just be like, "Dear Lord God, send me a husband," like or whatever you're praying for. Like you still have to do the work. Like are you financially ready? Are you mentally ready? Are you emotionally ready? Are you all of these things? Like yes, we can wish and we can want and we can pray and we can put these things out here, but it's like now you got to go do the work. Oh, I want to be the successful this or that. Or even when, you were like, hey, I want to do a podcast. You had to learn about it. What equipment do I need? This and that. Like it didn't just pop in your hands and you're like, boom, podcast. Like you have to do the work. So I definitely think that spiritual aspects are very helpful in keeping positivity and having hope and love and faith and like all of those sorts of things. But there's still like the work behind it. Like when you say those prayers, when you send out those thoughts, when you have that meditation, when you get up from that mat or your knees or, looking at the sun, moon, and stars, whatever you're doing, like you got to be ready to do the work. Like it doesn't just like, $100 bills aren't just going to like drop in your lap. If they are, let me know where. So, but I've been working since before I could work. I got a work permit. I did little jobs here and there, and it's like I'm no stranger to work. There's always work you have to put into things. So I definitely think that it's key or essential to have some sort of something, whether it's God, higher power, meditation, the earth, mother earth, whatever your thing is. I don't ever want people to think like, oh, this is the only way, because I definitely don't believe that. I want people to know that like you know, I've definitely run the gamut of all of my spiritual things, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of work behind it as well.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree 120% with you. Like you gotta co-create with the
Yeah.
universe, and
Yes.
it's not just relying upon that alone. Like that's the part where I think a lot of folks will trip themselves up because the work, as you've kind of talked about throughout this interview, it's not easy. Whether it's the work of
Mm-mm.
healing, whether it's the work of moving forward. Like yes, you could put certain things in your spiritual parent guardian's hands, but you still got to do the day to day, minute to minute, moment by moment grind and work on yourself to continue to live and to move forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like that faith without works is dead. Like you can't do, yeah, you can't just be like on grandmama's prayers. You gotta do the
I know we
work.
all wish it was that easy, but no, it clearly does not work like that. So,
Yeah,
and the
no, it
outcomes will
definitely
the
does.
outcomes will show you. So, well, Jasmine, for our next round, this is going to be an each one teach one rapid fire question. So I just have a couple questions for you. So, are you ready for the first one?
I'm
Are you
ready.
and
I'm
Sebastian
bringing the
ready
guy.
for the first one? Do you want to introduce folks to
This is
who want to know me?
Sebastian, love of my life. Bassie, you say hi to the people? Yes. He's a good boy. He's been sitting here the whole time, so
Aw.
we'll rapid fire away.
All right, so you and Sebastian are ready for the first one, which is
We
what's one
ready?
book that you would recommend that has been a game changer for you in your journey?
It's funny that you ask because I actually have it right here. I mean, there's been a lot of books. I'm not a huge reader, to be quite honest, but the things that I do read are typically like a self help or this or that, or a biography, things like that. But this book right here, it's called The Desire Map. I'm going to show everybody. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's by a woman named Danielle Laporte. There's actually like a workbook and all kinds of things. The thing that stood out with me most of in the Desire Map was she talked about how New Year's you're doing like vision boards, this and that, or like I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to save more money, this and that. So then you look back at the end of the year and you're like, didn't lose 20 pounds and I got no money, or whatever your your aspirations were. And she talked about instead of setting goals like I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to it was she set goals based on how she wanted to feel. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel financially free. I want to feel worldly. So when you set goals on based on how you want to feel, then you'll in turn like move your life in that direction. I want to feel worldly, you'll travel more. I want to feel healthy. You might really be saying you want to lose 20 pounds, but I want to feel healthy and you'll live a more healthier lifestyle. I want to feel financially free. You pay your bills or figure out a way that you're going to do it. So the thing that really stood out to me in this one, it's like there's so many books of like self-help and this and that. And it was just like this light bulb moment or aha moment, as Oprah would tell us, that dawned on me. And it was like, that's exactly it. Like, how do you want to feel? I want to feel good. I want to feel happy. I want to feel in love. I want to feel loved. I want to feel gracious. I want to feel like a queen or whatever it is you want to feel, rather than like, I want to save $1,000 and you save 900 and you don't feel like you made your goal. And then that you kind of like dismiss like the actual work that you might have done and maybe you didn't get all the way there. So I just love how she put it. It was like literally one of the opening lines of like, how do I want to feel? So yeah, that's a good one. I
That's
literally
great.
like, it's like right, I only have a few books up here, but it's literally my go-to all the time.
No, I really thank you for sharing the kind of that insight of that whole like attaching it to how do you
Yeah.
want to feel,
Yeah.
which could be so much more powerful than like the external metric that you're trying to use to judge yourself, where you might not be able to quote unquote
Exactly.
feel your bank account, the weight per se, but that feeling piece, we all can sense internally
Right.
on that aspect or envision. So that's
Yeah.
great.
I want to feel more generous or, you might give a little more, whatever it is.
So speaking of kind of feeling, I guess in a way, what's one habit or practice for you that has been a game changer in your lifestyle design?
I am always, as I said before, like music and dancing. Like sometimes I am getting ready in the bathroom over there and I turn on, there's music on in the morning after I meditate and for the whole day. So having a dance party is always a good time. I have like go-to songs that I just pick out.
Such
But
as,
really,
such as.
oh gosh, anything Beyonce. I did just go to 3 shows.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of Motown just to like have that good feeling of my dad. I love anything like 90s hip hop, R&B, like things like that, things that are going to get you going. But I am a lover of all kinds of music. I love Dave Matthews growing up. Like I love Simply Red. My dad was a huge fan, or there was always music going on. So I think that having like these moments in the car or the shower where you're belting out songs, like I'm definitely Mariah in the car and in the shower, like don't play me. Having that. But one thing, a coworker of mine, which became a friend, his name is Alex Perullo. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I just did. Um, he has an incredible just meditation life and practice, and I was always like intrigued. He leads this meditation in our office every Wednesday, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then like when my dad passed, he reached out to me because he lives on the East Coast. um, And I was like, Alex, hey, like I'm ready. And so for 2 years now, well, going into a little bit more, but I have been doing meditation every single day. And he's like, do it in the morning. Don't say I'm going to do it later and have 5 minutes. Isn't that? He's like, he just was like, Jasmine, promise me if I open this up for you, because he has this really great meditation program, um, that you're going to do it and you're going to commit. And it's like we rest our bodies and this and that. Like, why not rest our brain and relax and get ourselves centered? And so every morning I wake up, I have a meditation chair that like sits on the floor, and I look outside and I meditate every day, whether I have 5 minutes or I have 95 minutes. Like, it's definitely a non negotiable for me.
It was great to hear about some of these impactful practices from the music, because
Yeah.
who doesn't get energy and just a sense of emotion from music? But then meditation as a whole, and kind of sharing about your journey on how that's been going for you and how much of an impact that's been.
Yeah.
That's great that you do that to set the foundation for your day.
Yeah, it's just so good. Like, you're right, like setting the tone for your day. And now, in these apps, you can be like, oh, do I want to think of this or think of that or whatever? Like, there's so many, like, whatever, or a body scan meditation or this meditation or that meditation. Like, there's just so many ones that you can do. So it's like, depending on whatever you're feeling. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you can hear him snoring. Can you hear that? He's
Well,
already asleep. Yeah.
sorry, so
So I would
we'll
say
put it.
that meditation, I
Mhm.
also too, I know I touched on this before, but like just having that community around, even that one or two guys or gals you can call, at the drop of a dime, like I think it's really important to say when you need help. Hey, like I called one of my girlfriends the other day and I was like, I'm sad. And she was like, okay, well, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I literally was like, I don't know. This is what came over for me. And she was like, cool. Well, I'm going to sit here with you. So, have those pocket people that,
Mm.
you can call when you need someone for sure.
Oh, that's another clutch one. And you've talked about the importance of community, especially when life is going to hit. And it's
Yeah.
really important to have people who could just kind of be there with you, to just stay there with you through the cycle.
Yeah,
So this
definitely.
question, we're going to go back in time, Jasmine. So if the younger
Yes.
self, younger you, met you today, what would she be most proud of?
Oh gosh. So many things, like I just pulled myself up, like again, these things that have happened to me, and a lot of things happen to a lot of people, and there's worse things and all kinds of things that happen to people. But I just think that she would be just proud of where I am today, and that I'm doing things on my own, being on my own. Like when everything happened with my brother, I was in a dark place. Like it took me a long time to come out of that. Like I would go out with friends and end up in like hysterical crying fits for hours, like screaming. Like it wasn't cute. It wasn't good at all. So she would just be proud of me realizing and knowing that like my life still matters,
Mm.
you know? She'd be proud of so many things. Yeah, all the things.
Well, the final question, and this is what we're asking
Mm,
all guests this season, since this is all about overcoming self sabotage.
mm.
What piece of advice would you offer to someone that is struggling with undermining their own happiness and success?
That like you just can't. You can't do that. You can't live like that. Like you have to do it on your own too. So like you have to look into like I always say, especially with my brother, like I have everything out here. My brother is in prison for life. I don't know if we really said that. So he is in prison for the rest of his life. And like I have everything out here, whether I need a friend, whether I need sun, whether I need therapy, whether I need to hug my dog. Like we, as long as we're not imprisoned and things like that, and even if you are imprisoned, like we could talk about that another time. But like I just feel like there's so many outlets and places we go. Mental health and your health in general is so on the forefront right now too. There's free options. There's, you know, things that people don't even realize they have in their own health insurance and things like that. I would just say though, really, really and truly, like you have to do the work yourself. You have to pick yourself up. Like your life has value. You have value. You may not see it in this moment, and you may be like, holy shit, I'm starting at -10. But like, you're going to get back to number one. Like, it is going to happen. Like, as cheesy as it sounds, like, there's always going to be another day. Um, and I would just encourage people to keep fighting. Like, you're worth it. Your life has value. Your life has meaning. You just have to like pull your own bootstraps up and keep going for it. Like, don't give up.
Jasmine, you offered so much just inspirational like gems, but just because you've lived it. This isn't
Yeah.
something where you're just speaking from books, podcast interviews, and songs. No, you've like lived it. You've done the work. You've been in the dark night of the soul experiences. So if anything, this coming from you, I know is really going to hit and resonate with folks, especially when they read the book and get to hear more insight about some of the bits of your life that you shared. So with that said, can you just talk more about like, well, what is next for you, and where can people go to learn more about you and the book?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing I do want to say though too is like the work never ends too. Like the work you do in yourself, things are going to happen. The work never ends. We will never fully arrive. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like you arrive in Paris when you get there, but like as humans, like you we've never like arrived, like we're always continuing to like navigate and work on things. So it's just like what's going to be like your new normal type thing. But yes, things that are coming up are the book comes out on November 11th, 11/11. Pre-sale started in August on 8/8, and then the sale is 11/11. My website is out there. My name is spelt a little funny, but I think they'll put it on the screen there. It's jazimingarrett.com. The pre-sale is going on now. One thing I will say about the pre-sale is this book is a coffee table size book, so it's not like Little Catcher in the Rye or something like that. Although Catcher in the Rye is great, but it is a coffee table size book. It's 33 authors, like 12 sections, like billions of pages. It's fully color, like silk satin pages. It's such a beautiful, beautiful book. Um, I think that it is for all humans and all people. I don't think it's just a men's or a women's type thing. There's going to be stories in there from all kinds of women that my story might not really resonate with you, but there's other women in the book that have great stories as well that might resonate with you. So yeah, you can get it on jazimingarrett.com. Um, Not sure what the next versions of the book will look like, so I do highly recommend everyone to get the copy now while it's in our first version, which is going to be the most beautiful.
wonderful. Well, I'll be sure to include all that in the show notes, Jasmine. And listen, I mean, for knowing you 2 years, there's so much that you share and that you've opened up, and I appreciate you just being so vulnerable with your story and your experiences, which I think is just gonna help so many, those that read the book, those that get the check out the interview as well. And so thank you for just showcasing to all of us how we could transform life altering experiences into love in our life, how we could also be better friends and supporters in community
Hmm.
of those when they do go through some of these type of experiences by just being there.
Hmm.
And something else you iterate is just the work that we have to kind of do within ourselves, the
Yeah.
accountability, the responsibility that we have, because we all know life is going to hit, situations are going to happen, but we've got to understand that like it's all about what we do in those moments that truly does help us to get through to the other side and to continue to live our days going forward to attain those things that you outlined, that peace, that joy, that love, that freedom
Yeah.
that we all deserve and really that are in our own hands here. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah, we do. No, thank you so much. I also meant to tell you before that shirt is literally on the money. Like, you couldn't have worn a better shirt today. I was like, he's repping love. I'm not really, but love is definitely currency. As silly as it sounds, like the all we need is love, love makes the world go round. Like, it's true. It really, really is true. Love hard, love big, be bold, be brave, like, love yourself, love others, love strangers. Like, I couldn't say it enough, enough, enough. Also, thank you so much, Justin. Like, it's so cool to see the fact that you and I just met randomly walking in the neighborhood. And, now we have our walks. I remember telling you about this project and that it was happening, and for it to really be here finally, and for me to be sitting here as one of your guests, like, I'm really honored and I don't take it lightly. Like, I thank you so much for your time and your efforts in putting this interview together and the opportunity to just share with the world about love.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jasmine. And folks, thank you for tuning in. So I want to say that that's it for today's show. If you enjoyed the Living One Toys podcast, be sure to share us on Instagram, LinkedIn, or wherever, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and give us a follow at Living Once Twice, where you can tune in and learn more about Jazimin and all the insight and information that she's shared, reaching out to you all through the time and the space that separates us to say, remember, your dream life is waiting for you. It's time to go for it. You deserve it. Catch you later on Living Once Twice.